Welcome! In this video I will show you how I made my hotel desk from recycled cardboard. I sketched out some ideas. I knew I wanted something for the keys and the messages, but I also wanted some lower cabinets. For this desk I will be recycling cardboard. The lower cabinets are a box really, just a front, back, and sides. I decided to make the countertop double thickness. I measured the first one and traced the second one to make it faster. I'm mainly using small corrugated cardboard for this project. It's about 1/16 of an inch thick. I like using it more than the larger corrugated when making furniture. Once I have the two countertops glued together, I need to cover the open edges. So I'm using a strip of cardstock for that. You could also use food packaging. Cereal box would be perfect for that. I'm using my favorite glue, Elmers Glue All. I glue the strip down and trim close to the edge. I didn't have to do one of the ends or the back because it won't even be seen. It'll be up against a wall. I glue the top on, keeping the back edges flat since it will be up against a wall. I'm making some marks for fake cabinets and getting their measurements. I cut my cabinet doors from heavy cardstock 2 layers thick. Again, food packaging would be perfect. Of course, everything I make can always be made from wood if you prefer that better. Then I just glue the cabinet doors and drawers on using my placement marks. You could always eyeball it too. I'm horrible at eyeballing though. The next area I'm working on is this midsection. I'm looking through my cardboard for a good piece to use. I cut a back, sides, and this piece that I'm gluing onto the sides. Although I wish I hadn't glued it on at this point. You'll see why in a bit. Everything will build off of this back piece except for the decorative top pieces. I'm starting to work on this little area with I'm going to call them cubbies for messages and keys. These shelves are the top and bottom of the cubbies. I wanted to build this quickly and not have to glue them all in separately. So I cut notches like you see here, and they just slide over each other. It kind of reminds me of those packing boxes for glassware. I should have really made this piece from layers of cardstock instead. That way it would have been a little bit stronger, but I made it work. Before I went any further, I wanted to cover the open ends of the cardboard. I'm using some watered down paper clay like spackling to cover the open ends. I try to apply it as thinly as possible. When it's completely dry, I sand and apply more if I need it. Before I assembled the little cubby unit, I painted it and the inside of the cabinet. It was definitely easier to paint it that way than after I assembled it. Remember those little pieces I glued onto the side? This is why I wish I waited to glue them on. It would have been much easier to install the cubby unit if I had waited. So I had to gently and slowly push it into place without damaging it. Once I had it in place, I added a little glue to the top and bottom of it. I'm working on this area now. It has 2 top and 2 bottom pieces, one slightly larger than the other. I glue the top pieces together and then the bottom pieces, keeping the unfinished back edges flat. I finished the open ends with paper clay just like before. There's a little lip around the front and sides. I glued some strips of cardboard together to form a shallow-like box. Then I glued the top and bottoms onto it. Now it's time for me to glue that section to the cubby cabinet. Everything is flat and unfinished on the back. Now for the decorative top piece. I could have just cut it out, but I like to save my sketches, so I'm going to trace it and cut it up. I only had to trace half and then I just folded and cut it. I'm trying to make some detail to give it a decorative touch. I did a couple layers of cardstock for each, and the main piece is 4 layers. Here's how it turned out. I also glued a skinny strip of paper across the top. I kept it flat on the back. I glued it close to the front edge on the top of the cabinet. I took a strip of cardboard the same width as the front side. I cut pieces off of it in staggered sizes to create a decorative element to the front. I use this technique a lot because I like the way it looks when it's complete. I cut this little piece from cardstock and glued under the other element. I also glued in some little strips on the inside to fill it in and make it look like a solid piece. I'm trying something new with the painting. I base coated it with a pumpkin color paint first. Then I made a brown wash and painted in one direction to create the wood grain lines. I attached the top cabinet to the bottom. I cut some googly eyes in half, painted, and glued them on to be the drawer and cabinet pulls. That completes the back lobby desk unit. Now I need to make the front desk. Using the same type of cardboard, I have a front, back, and sides. I glue both sides on first, like the previous desk. I forgot to mention, if you happen to try this and your cardboard has print, you need to sand it lightly. It helps the glue to grab better. This cabinet is also just like a box. I'm pushing the side down to make sure it's flush with the front pieces. One of my long sides seemed a little bowed, but it worked fine and wasn't noticeable really in the end. I have a base piece and a countertop. I made the base a little more slender than the top. Each is 2 layers thick with a strip of cardstock glued to the edge like the first desk. Probably I could have used the paper clay if I wanted. Gluing the desk to the base, keeping a lip around the front and back. Not much of a lip on the sides, more in the front, because I'm gluing an overlay onto the front and I needed the extra room. Instead of having to push it in like this, I probably should have glued it on before I assembled the desk. I cut these panels from cardboard and glued them in. I didn't finish the edge of them with paper clay, but I wish I had. Just like on the back desk, I am gluing on some staggered pieces of cardboard for decoration. I think it kind of looks like brackets. I didn't show it, but I did use paper clay to fill in open edges and painted the very same way as I did the back desk. I made a few accessories to add to this cabinet, mostly little pieces of paper to look like messages. I also placed a few books here and there. In my mind, I imagine the hotel only has 4 rooms, and they keep the key in the cubby till someone checks in. Messages are left in the appropriate cubby too. I drilled a hole through the countertop to run the lamp wire through. I also cut an opening near the bottom back to feed the wire out. Then I just glued the lamp down. I made a hotel registry book so the hotel attendant could keep record. I didn't have any feathers to put on the end of my pen, but I don't think they always had them. I tried to make something that looked like an inkwell. Oh, and a bell to ring for service. I also glued on one of the cowboy hats I made in a previous video. I'm very pleased with how these 2 desks turned out. There wasn't a lot I could find for early 1900s hotel lobbies. I just had to go off memory of old Western movies and TV shows. Even if you aren't thinking about making an old hotel, I hope I have given you some inspiration to create maybe some other vintage furniture. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.